Alright, what's good, motherfuckers? We are back with a breakdown for UFC Atlantic City. And you know what? After looking at this card from top to bottom, I am so excited about this one. It's actually a worthy fight night card. Can't remember the last time I uttered those words. Quickly before we get into this, I just want to say thank you to all the new subscribers and those watching. The numbers on some of the videos recently have been absolutely amazing. I really appreciate it. Look out for the live watch-alongs on here and on Antoine's channel at Making the Walk MMA. Let's get into this. I see some really good promise here, some really good matchups, and more importantly, some good opportunities to make some money. All right, first fight of the night, we have a pair of decent bantamweights in PACHECO and LOUGHRAN. I'm going to take the guy that looks like a man that was genetically crossbreeded with a pit bull, rather than the dude that acts like he has the brain of a pit bull. I'm going to take the Irishman, LOUGHRAN. Now, he came in on short notice against Lapalus and pretty much dominated in the grappling, but got outstruck a little bit, and really looks like he belongs in the UFC. Angel PACHECO basically got beaten up on the Contender Series over 3 rounds in what was a very good fight, but is somehow still here. You know, whatever. LOUGHRAN is a short, stocky guy that puts on a really strong pace, and I think on a full camp and at his natural weight class, I think he's going to put it on PACHECO and beat his ass up. You know, he's a really good pressure wrestler. He's got very powerful hands, and yeah, I like him here. Minus 300 is a little bit wide, but I don't hate it as a fluffer. This one should be quite comfortable. I think this is going to be one and done for PACHECO. All right, next one, we've got 2 middleweights as the second fight of the prelims. And yeah, this isn't a bad one at all. If you look at the 2 body types, and you're basically a clueless simp, you're probably going to take the one that looks more jacked. But I'm going to apply my new MMA theory here, that fast twitch, beefy balloon animal look is a bad base for MMA. So on that note, I'm going to take Jacob MALKOUN. He's got way better cardio, way better pressure, and PETROSKI is a sloppy wrestler with a one-trick overhand that you can see a mile off. I think it starts out fairly even, and then MALKOUN's going to take over and finish within the distance. Now, MALKOUN's record does look horrible, but he really should be 8-2 rather than 7-3. He was beating the fuck out of Cody Brundage, who is a pussy that took the easy way out for a very dubious DQ win. The ref basically fucked that one up. I just think MALKOUN's better. Tougher, better cardio, and I think he's going to win comfortably here. Alright, next one up, we've got 2 flyweights, GATTO versus DUDAKOVA. Now, DUDAKOVA is the overwhelming pick on Tapology, but despite being quite hot, I think she's kind of garbage. She was a minus 600 favorite against Jinyu Frey, and arguably lost that fight in my opinion. GATTO is not amazing either, but she's faced way better competition, and at least she makes things competitive against those girls. And I just think she's going to be more dog tough and more experienced in there. Now, the over is a given in this one, so if you're betting, 2.5 is always going to be a nice line. DUDAKOVA is going to get a lot of love on the lines, so if you wait out for the fight to open evens, if you're going to insist on going with a money line, I'd wait until later on in the week. I think GATTO will win a very close decision, and everyone will collectively forget what happened in this one about 8 seconds after the fight is over. Alright, next up, we've got 2 light heavyweights, ASLAN and TURKALJ. Apparently, this is a regional matchup that is now taking place in the UFC for some reason. Now, anyone who has seen TURKALJ interview, how do I say this delicately? The guy's a weird pervert. If you ask this guy any question, and I mean any question, he's going to somehow find a way to ignore what you're saying completely and answer like the creepy sexual predator that he is. He's never met a mirror that he didn't love. I'm pretty much certain of that. Now, he does have a win over ASLAN in their first fight, so this one does make it, that fact does make this a little bit tricky. ASLAN, though, is not very good. and has mostly been can crushing, so the 12-1 record is a little bit deceptive. My biggest issue with ASLAN, aside from the mid skill level, is that he's a typical bird-brained meathead with zero cardio. I do think the TURKALJ is not as bad as his last 3 fights have suggested. They were against decent competition, and I do believe he has some talent, but he's been KO'd badly by Pedro in his last one. He got subbed in his first fight in the UFC against Almeida, really easily, and then got decisioned by Petrino in his second fight. So if he loses this one, it might be his last fight, so there's a lot of pressure here. I'd stay away from this one at all costs if I'm betting, but I actually think that the weirdo gets chinned here and loses the rematch. I'm going to take ASLAN to win with very zero confidence. Alright, next one, we've got featherweights, BAZUKJA versus Matthews, and woof woof. I'm kind of tempted to go with the underdog Matthews here. This one should probably be open in the cards, and maybe it is. You know, the lineup that I'm seeing seems to be a little bit off. Now, BAZUKJA just got chinned out easily by EMMERS, who is a great fighter, and we will talk about him a little bit later. See, I told you they always put guys on the card who they've just been chinned by. But EMMERS isn't really a KO guy. Matthews is dog tough and reasonably well-rounded, and because it's such a close matchup on paper, I'm going to edge Matthews as the dog. He's a southpaw, which will make BAZUKJA's leg kicks pretty worthless, and I think that's going to throw him off, as he often uses those to set other things up. Matthews has good entries and timing, and I think he's going to wait to find dominant positions, using that left jab to set those up, and I think he's going to have the better moments over 3. Now, if I was betting on this, I would take the over 2.5, but I think Matthews is going to win a very, very close one. Alright, next one, back to bantamweight, and this one's fairly simple. Herbert Burns is the runt of the family. He's got no cardio and 0 heart. He does have really good jiu-jitsu, but doesn't have any cardio. And I think ARCE, as the southpaw, is going to touch him up with the jab, negate the takedowns, and just wear him down with that jab. I think Herbert's going to look okay early, but he's coming up against a far superior and more technical striker who I think is going to break him. I think this would be a nice parlay fluffer if you can get ARCE about -400. He tends to trade win and losses throughout his UFC tenure, and considering he just came off a close loss in his last one, I think he's going to bounce back here and finish within the distance. Maybe by exhaustion-based strikes. Alright, in the feature fight at the prelims, we've got JANDIROBA versus GODINEZ at strawweight. Really good matchup. I know it's a female fight, and I almost never say this, but I kind of mean it. I don't think LUQUE GODINEZ is actually that good. Every single fight she has is razor close and scrappy, and that really worries me here, playing her as a -200 favorite with someone as scrappy and dog tough as Raul Rosas Jr.'s true birth mother. Now, GODINEZ will be the more explosive wrestler, and JANDIROBA will be the more active striker. Both very tough to finish, and in a fight this close, I refuse to endorse either woman. I think the over 2.5 is a banker here, so I'm going to go with that. I think GODINEZ will get more control time, and while JANDIROBA is likely to land more, I don't think she's going to visibly hurt LUQUE enough to convince the judges. So I'm going to take the easy way out here, and I'm going to go for this one to go comfortably over 2.5. Alright, so on to the main event of the prelims. We've got a featherweight fight. Nate the Train, baby! I love this man. Yeah, woo! Yeah, he's going to lose this fight, though. I think Jamal Emmers is one of the most slept-on fighters in the UFC. I think he's really well-rounded and skilled. And most importantly, I think he's got a really good fight IQ. Now, Nate the Train is a warrior and will bring a massive amount of forward pressure, but he usually gets wins against fighters that are dumber than he is and that are prone to making mistakes. And I don't think Jamal Emmers is that guy. I think Emmers is going to stay defensively responsible and then use Nate's aggression against him to pick well-timed shots and land takedowns off them. Now, I do like Landwehr a lot. I just think this is a bad matchup for him. Emmers basically got robbed hard in that Jack Jenkins fight, and I think he's owed one back. He's coming off a nice KO win. I just think he's going to be too well-rounded and too smart for Nate the Train, and I like him to win a decision in this one. Alright, so here's a roundup of my picks on the card for the prelims. If you're looking to build a solid parlay, I'd go with LOUGHRAN, MALKOUN, and LUQUE and Jerna to go over 2.5. They're probably the ones I'm the most confident in. ARCE should win comfortably as well, but the line is trash. It's going up and down, and the other matchups are far closer with dangerous factors and really bad odds. Alright, so opening up the main card, we've got Chidi NJOKUANI versus MCKEE. At welterweight. Alright, yeah. This is a tough one with so many factors to consider, and I'm probably going to get roasted for this one. Chidi is fighting down a weight class and is making a big cut, which I don't like for him at 35 years old. But he is the more explosive guy and dangerous, especially in that first round. MCKEE is coming off a loss against ALGEO in what turned out to be a really close and scrappy fight. A fight that he basically took over in and arguably could have won, where he showed real toughness and heart. We're either going for a Chidi starching in round 1 or a decision win for MCKEE, and that's kind of how I see this one going. Now, because of the weight cuts and the 3 starchings in a row that Chidi has received, I'm gonna have to say that I'm going with the younger MCKEE to survive the first round, and that Chidi gasses hard and then loses the next 2 rounds. It's a risky pick. Chidi could look amazing at welterweight, and he's very, very good. There's just too many unknowns here, and I'm just gonna pick MCKEE on a hunch. Alright, next one up, we've got ALGEO versus Nelson. This one should be on the fucking prelims in my opinion. And Nate the Train and EMMERS should be in this spot, but you know, whatever. Tough one to pick and really interesting stylistically. ALGEO is a distant striker that keeps his hands down, and Nelson is someone that likes to pressure with a high guard and get into the phone booth and make it kind of ugly. Both men are decently well-rounded wrestlers. I'd say that Nelson probably has the advantage in that regard. This is a really tough pick, but given how their styles match up, I'm going to go with ALGEO. I think Nelson's going to keep the guard up and he's going to get popped at range. And when he tries to close the distance, ALGEO is really good at landing knees up the middle. Nelson is really tough though, and his boxing is decent. I just think that his cardio has let him down in the past, and ALGEO is quite high volume. And I think that might draw Nelson into being more active and eventually gassing out later on in the fight. I like ALGEO to win this by decision, by outlanding Nelson clearly in 2 of the 3 rounds. Should be a relatively fun one though. Maybe the over 2.5 isn't a bad one to take either. Alright, so third fight, we've got RUZIBOEV versus DUMAS at middleweight. This is the luck of the night for me. I think RUZIBOEV is going to fuck DUMAS up. I think DUMAS is a very average fighter in all areas, and he seems to be spending more time in the clink than in the gym these days. The man needs a restraining order for his own good. Now, even without all these silly, well, dangerously criminal distractions, and I say this being no angel myself, I still think he gets fucked up in this one, even if he was at his very best. DUMAS is a shit human, a mid-fighter at best, and I think the UFC is basically putting him in there with this absolute monster so that the world can watch him get fucking annihilated. Now, RUZIBOEV, I think, is going to win by submission or maybe brutal ground and pound, maybe even a TKO on the ground. He should be a 1,000,000 to 1 favorite in my opinion. Minus 270 is a steal. Alright, on to the feature fight of the night. We've got middleweights WEIDMAN and SILVA. The pink slip matchup of the night. You know how I love those. Both men have basically won one of their last 5 fights. But Chris WEIDMAN comparatively is just fucking done out here. And unlike a lot of fans that love this guy, I really couldn't give a shit about him. I've never really been a fan of his, and having him hang around like a wafting fart is just really sad at this point. He's had a horrific series of injuries throughout his career and should not still be fighting. If he wasn't a former champion with some credit in the bank, he would have been put out to pasture years ago. I genuinely believe that. Now, SILVA has had some bad losses, but is nowhere near as long in the tooth. He has declined massively in the last few years, but is still dangerous at times and is still around because he looks like he's still capable. WEIDMAN just doesn't. Stand-up wise, SILVA's more dangerous, and WEIDMAN doesn't have the same tenacity and to get takedowns and doesn't really do much down there when he does get them. I think Weidman's going to try and throw with him. He's got no hand speed anymore. Not that he never really had any. And I think he's going to get clipped really badly if he does this. Now, Weidman is tough. He may chat his way to the end, but I don't see how he wins this one. Alright, on to the co-main event of the evening, and we've got Buckley versus LUQUE. This was actually the hardest one on the card to pick for me, because I've got maximum respect for both dudes. LUQUE is a really good stand-up fighter, but interestingly, he has shown some nice new wrinkles in his game, especially the way he grappled and dominated RDA in his last fight. That honestly really surprised me. He's also got a chin of granite, and a really tough guy to finish in there. He certainly has a better chin than Buckley. However, the worry for me with LUQUE generally is that he's been really inactive over the last year and a half and is still really poor defensively in his striking. He doesn't move his head well and he does get hit a lot. Buckley, for me, on the other hand, is a natural and big welterweight. Seems to be improving every time I see this guy. And while LUQUE looked great in the grappling in his last one, it was against an aging RDA who is not at his best at welterweight anyway. So I think Buckley's going to be harder to bully in the grappling and is showing a massively improved fight IQ. He's shown he can win by knocking you the fuck out and has proven he can get in there and grind things out too. This is a tough fight and is a pick'em for in the odds for a reason. And I love Vicente Luque, but I'm going to ride with Buckley on this one. Now, a prime Luque, I'd pick all day. I just don't think he's that guy anymore. And I think Buckley is going to rightfully vault himself into the rankings here. I'm going to go Buckley by decision. All right, now on to the main event. We've got an undeniable title eliminator at flyweight. Now, I picked Blanchfield to win the title by the end of the year. But this is a really tricky one to call. You know, it's a typical striker versus grappler matchup and is intriguing for so many reasons. Firstly, though, the odds make no sense to me. The bookies have got Blanchfield as a 2-1 favourite, despite having only one world-class win against Talia Santos, and it was a very close win. She's the smaller woman, and despite how much women have been, despite how many people have been sucking her off for her striking, really sluggish and really sloppy in my opinion. On the other hand, though, she is probably the best grappler in the division and should have a distinct advantage in that realm. Now, Fiorot comparatively is a massive southpaw flyweight with excellent boxing and is physically so strong in there. She doesn't headhunt, she mixes things up really well. And the thing for me when I had a think about this fight and looked over things, I actually think that the gap between the striking is way larger than the gap between the wrestling offense that Blanchfield has and the wrestling defense that Fiorot has. And it's supposed to be a damage-based sport now. Fiorot has beaten Chukagian, Maya, who I rate and somehow got cut, Bueno Silva and Tabitha Ricci, and she also just beat Rose Namajunas in her last fight. And Blanchfield has beaten Miranda Maverick, who I think is overrated, JJ Aldrich, who's terrible, Molly McCann, who's fucking awful, Andrade, who was basically fighting every week to pay her way through a divorce, and Talia Santos, who for me is her only elite win. I think Blanchfield will find it harder to get her down the longer the fight goes, and that Fiorot will be able to keep the striking pressure up for the majority of the fight. I'm swerving this one at the 11th hour, and I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to take Fiorot to land the more damage. She's just so much better in the striking than Erin, and over 5 rounds, I think that Erin is more likely to gas applying her game than Fiorot is applying hers. And as a 2-1 dog as well, I also feel there's value there. Alright, so here's my overview of the main cards. If you are looking to add a few for your parlays here, for me, Ratsabov is a banker and Weidman should get slapped as well. And if you fancy a dog that's really undervalued, as I said, for a one-shot play, I go with Fiorot to put herself into title contention. Alright, so that's the card. Look out over the next few days. We've got 2 interesting MMA topics a day to break down. And of course, the live watch along on Saturday night. If it's not on this channel, it will be over at Making the Walk MMA. This is a great fight night card and enjoy the fuck out of it. because we've got hot garbage until UFC 300 and then even more garbage after it. Enjoy it in a bit.